when I was younger, I was very much into the idea of marijuana legalization, and I'm glad that it's legal in Colorado. Even though it's not technically legalized, it's regulated. I've thought a lot about how a lot of big industries have a vested interest in keeping pot and hemp illegal because it interferes with their business model being involved in other sorts of industrial supplies, hemp being a big one, the pharmaceutical companies being another one. So, like, if you can grow pot and generate your own medicine that is palliative for you, anti-inflammatory, suddenly you don't have to go get something from big pharma. And so what this is making me think about, I've made no secret lately that I've been going very often to the so what happens is these companies have a vested interest in protecting their bottom line, and they what they do is they've demonized marijuana. They've made it seem a lot worse than it really is over time so that they can keep it out of the public marketplace, make it seem evil, make it seem like stupid people do it, all because billions of dollars are at stake, especially in big pharma and stuff. And so that's part of my mindset going into this next video, which I'll show you. I'll explain to what this is all about. What am I getting at here? So I found this Dr. Phil video where they're talking about kava, and it's been no secret. I've been out to the kava bar a lot lately. There's a place where I'm hanging after I do shows like 3 or 4 times a week, and drinking kava and drinking kratom too. And so this is a Dr. Phil report about having a professional on about kava, and I got these vibes from it about how. Are they demonizing kava because it's another one of those things that could be a threat to other industries, including the alcohol industry, because it's giving people a social setting where alcohol is not in the mix? It's entirely something else. But so I want to watch some of this and make some commentary on it.
I've asked Dr. Pat Basu to join me.
No, I just have to always do my Dr. Phil impression because he has this southern kind of slow way of talking, and I do think I somehow emulate him fairly well, audibly at the very least.
He served as
a
White House fellow.
Oh,
okay. So immediately when you say this doctor you're calling up served as a White House fellow, I'm like, skepticism.
Most selective and prestigious program for national leadership and service. He's also served
Continue.
as chief resident at Stanford University.
Now, the chief resident, meaning the top guy, the top cat. Would Dr. Phil say cat? I don't think Dr. Phil would say cat. He said he served as the top chief resident at the Funny Farm, right?
I am making fun of this, but let's keep going.
Now the chief medical officer of Doctor on Demand, the company that my son Jay and I have developed. Dr. Basu, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Dr. Phil. Thanks for having me.
So, like, Dr. Phil just said he appointed this guy at his own organization or something like that, which makes me wonder about Dr. Phil, because once you get up there and you make big money suddenly, and when you're on the Dr. Phil show, you have a bunch of advertisers that you have to be beholden to, especially I bet you frequently they're involved in pharmaceutical companies, so you can't like not have that tie there. But anyway, they're talking about kava here. This guy's talking about the negative side effects of kava. And I'm not necessarily saying he's not saying the truth, but there's this red flag to me because of the circumstances. I'm like, okay, who has something to lose if kava is an industry that is allowed to grow? That's just my question.
What can you tell us about these substances, kava and kratom?
Now, kava and kratom.
Now, why, since they're Dr. Phil, when kava and kratom are entirely different things, why are you bringing kratom into the mix here when the topic is more specifically about kava? I want to know the answer to that question, sir. Continue on.
Unregulated substances. So the
Oh, they're
FDA
unregulated. Red flag number one. Be scared. They're unregulated. Unregulated. Everything is regulated that you put into your body these days. You can't buy grapes that aren't regulated. Anything coming from a farm, anything grown is regulated. You can't have a fucking, what do you call it? Those fucking little vegetable farm festivals, they don't put them on. I don't know why I'm forgetting what they're called. Like when it's in a parking lot and people have little stands and they grow their own stuff. You can't have you can't grow anything that's not regulated. And so they have this trope they roll out. Be afraid of it because it's unregulated. Or like the politics I'm getting to is they're demonizing something that probably might be good for people, but nonetheless, they don't care if it's good for people. It's bad for their bottom line. Therefore, roll out the propaganda. I'm not saying that this isn't true. I'm saying I have my doubts about it. There are just red flags here.
Has not done the proper studies on the safety and efficacy, and most importantly, they have no oversight over the concentration of doses.
Are there dangers associated with ingesting kava? Let's start with that.
Absolutely, and again, the danger with kava is a little bit because we haven't, as a sort of society, and the FDA has not done that many studies on it. A little bit is
the lack of studies you're talking about remind me of something else in recent history that they rolled out to billions of people in the world without proper testing and forced people to do it, threatened them with their jobs, coerced them, shamed them, and how about that? It's just this crazy double standard I'm hearing. And so when I heard this, I felt compelled to say something. It's not easy to be funny about this, except that
When I hear Dr. Phil talking, he just has this slow southern guttural way of talking, and it's easy for me to pick on. And I can't help myself with it because he's Dr. Phil. When I hear Dr. Phil, I'm always like, there's Dr. Phil.
What we do know.
Paul, you should say LOL now in a derisive way and show that you are narcissistic in doing so. Okay, I will do that. Hey now, Dr. Peterson, would you like to... Well, I would certainly be honored to come on your show.
Is the dangers, first and foremost, are at the liver. So begins with hepatitis, with this inflammation of the liver.
So where does that come from? Hepatitis, cirrhosis, and liver failure. Hepatitis. What? What's this about hepatitis? You're not saying you can catch it from kava. So what does hepatitis have to do with this? I'm just curious.
Cirrhosis, which is kind of a more severe process before it would progress to
liver failure.
Liver failure. The second organ that gets damaged with kava ingestion from what we've researched is the kidney. So you get kidney damage. You can start to see blood in your urine.
I have heard that there's something to kidney damage with kava, but I've also heard that it's what I've heard is specifically if you drink alcohol and have kava, the combination of the two makes some kind of extremely toxic combination that is bad for the liver, something to be avoided. And I'm not mixing kava and alcohol, but I just hear this and I'm like, I'm skeptical, but I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just skeptical. Blood and urine.
And
We all have a little blood in urine. I've had blood in my urine for years. And does that sound funny like I'm making a joke? It's not a joke. It's a very small amount. And when I've done testing, I said, what's up with this, doc? Because I did other tests to make sure nothing was wrong. He's like, it's benign bleeding. Like, it's like you can have a bloody nose, but it doesn't mean you're dying of something. And so the doctor characterized it as benign. And I bet you if I got that same piss test that I still have blood in my urine, I suppose it wouldn't be bad all these years later just to go get a pee test and test the blood in the fucking urine. I think it's appropriate when you say the blood in the fucking urine, you go bing and boom.
Secondary organs that, there's some differences in the body are damage to the skin as well as to the lung. And finally, there's evidence that this causes some pretty significant weight loss as well, unhealthy weight loss.
All right,
Why? Unhealthy weight loss, how and why? So you just say that. What's unhealthy weight loss? Define that for me. So you're defining these variables that is bad for me. I'm the kind of guy who wants to know. Give me the full truth. Or are you a propagandist? I'm saying there are red flags to this because they're very much on the surface of things. If this is so important and people shouldn't be drinking it, then convince me. Because as far as you saying, I'm a doctor, I'm a White House fellow, and I'm part of Dr. Phil's doctor team, I don't really give a shit about that stuff. Because Dr. Phil has taken advertising for years, and he's a filthy rich guy, I don't necessarily trust him. But again, I keep wanting to reiterate, I'm not declaring that I know the truth. I'm just saying there are markers here that make me skeptical of what the hell they're talking about. Kava in particular. And you brought Kratom into this before. You mentioned Kratom, and so you're tying that in kind of with all these other things, even though there's nothing further said about Kratom. Well, it's unregulated. Oh my God, it's unregulated? Holy cow. It's unregulated, everybody. Never mind that there are societies that used it for thousands of years, and they claim, and others have positive claims. Anecdotal, no. Science is only something you declare when there's big money involved, and we shame people when there's been no testing involved. Meanwhile, how do people get pregnant? Have we tested scientifically that people get pregnant when there's like a penis inside of a vagina ejaculating and assuming they're both fertile people? I don't know. We scientifically tested that. We've confirmed it throughout history and the fact that we all exist. But, they just have these buzzwords, the things they say sometimes about things. And I'm like, oh, I don't trust what you're saying.
I understand there you're seeing problems with respiratory depression, hallucinations.
Now, I have heard that too, that it slows down your breathing. So they're calling it respiratory depression, which sounds negative, which just means it actually calms you down. But I have heard a strange story that if you combine it with other drugs, it could cause you to stop breathing. And so it's like, really? I don't know. So I don't want to make light of that necessarily, but tremors, hallucinations, delusions, psychosis, hostility, aggression, mood swings, insomnia, vomiting, anorexia, weight loss. To be honest with you, I think I sleep better when I've had a little bit of it. I've not vomited. Anorexia. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. I'm so hungry after I'm at the Kava bar. I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's either time to go to my parents for dinner or I'm like going to the Indian buffet down the street. So insomnia, some of these these are typical things you would say. So you say it's unregulated. So if it's unregulated and it's never been tested, how do you claim to know that these are verified? Possible dangers of Kratom. Okay. Respiratory depression, psychosis, hostility. I do think that there's some irritability after you stop doing. I do think there's some irritability after you stop doing Kratom, from my own experience. And I realize that this is anecdotal, but I do feel like when I go a day or two and I've been drinking a lot of it, it's kind of like a hangover effect or a little bit of a withdrawal effect. And it is what it is. I'm just going to be honest about it. Because even though I'm not sitting here defending, I think marijuana should be legal because I think the consequences of the government regulating your life with marijuana, coming in, bashing your door in, putting you in jail for a few plants, prison for years at a time, punishing you worse than a pedophile, those consequences are worse than the actual crime. And so what I'm saying is I'm not defending the dark side of marijuana, even though I think it should be legal. I'm not sitting here and saying it's okay. It should be a personal choice, but at the same time, you should be extremely fucking mature and realistic about drug use and addiction. I have so many people I've known in my life who've gotten mad at me when I say, yeah, marijuana is addictive. I still say that. And I know people hate that. And I'm still advocating for you to have it. But don't take it like a personal insult when I fucking say that. I know for myself, like the habit-forming nature of marijuana. And I'm being honest about Kratom or Kava in the exact same way. Kava and Kratom to me don't nearly give me the fucking mental high that I get from marijuana. But my point is, marijuana would be my first drug of choice of everything. But even when I had a medical card, I was never fucking lying to people and saying, I'm medicating. I'm like, no, I'm being honest with you. Even though I have a medical card and I get the benefits of that medical card, and I had a valid medical issue at the time, which I still think I have, I've never said anything other than it was recreational for me. And so I'm making the same point about this. I'm establishing that I'm not being biased toward Kava. If I found out that it's truly bad, I might stop fucking drinking it, okay? I put on my social media handle now, Kava slut. I'm a Kava slut, baby. And I want to marry a Kava slut. Excuse me, do you like Kava? No, I don't. Then why the fuck am I talking to you then, bitch? I know. And see, this is me. So I'm serious, and I can't stay serious, I have to get silly, because once you start taking me too seriously, all of a sudden there might be ramifications for that. So I have to keep it silly so that the real intellectuals know that I'm being silly and they know that I'm serious, and the real dingbats will demonize me for one little thing I said and forget the whole spectrum of thought that I'm conveying to someone right here, right now. This is not manosphere shit today. This whole show has not been. I'm at 54 minutes. How did this hour go by?
Delusion, psychosis, and then real serious problems with mood swings.
I have to say that's a definitive possibility with Kratom, given the way that it makes you feel if you're doing a lot of it. I've also noticed with it, here's why it's easy for me not to get addicted to Kratom for me, because I noticed if I drink it every day, I don't feel shit at all. All it does is make me piss a lot. So, but if I take 2 or 3 days off of Kratom, I go and have some Kratom, and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, it feels nice. It's better than marijuana in that way because it gets out of your system quickly. Keep talking, Dr. Phil.
And other things.
Yeah, that's correct. The respiratory depression
That's correct.
and the psychosis and hallucinations are definitely the most.
And those are serious claims, what he's saying about those things. I don't take that lightly, because if any of that is true, I want to be honest about it. But sometimes you have people who do drugs, and because they love the drug, they're just like going to the mat defending it. I'm not doing that. Like if I begin to, like, I'm not in denial about addiction. I do think certain things can be habit forming, but I have long craved for the environment that's a social fucking gathering of people, a community where you can go and socialize. And I do think that Kratom and Kava offer an environment where people don't have to go and get drunk on alcohol, because I feel like alcohol is still worse than these two alternatives. I still feel like alcohol, for what it is Kava is safer than alcohol. Kratom is safer than alcohol. Am I stating that as an absolute truth? No. Have I studied it? No. But I've seen the effects of alcohol on my friends. And furthermore, when you fucking drink Kratom and when you drink Kava, you don't become inebriated stupid. But I know there are risks. Doing it excessively, I genuinely believe there are risks. And as the saying goes, this is honestly true. Everything in moderation. I think moderation is important.
Well,
I have other videos I was going to get to today. And Dr. Phil, you took too much of my fucking time. You bastard. I don't know why I'm saying that in what I think is an Irish accent, but you bastard! You dirty bastard! No offense, Dr. Phil. I like you, but I have doubts about you as well, Mr. Big Money.
And the most concerning, but absolutely the insomnia and the significant weight loss are all a part of that.
Those I'm like, insomnia, weight loss, like, I don't think those are my problem. Well, if I have insomnia, I certainly don't think it's because of Kava. I have insomnia because I'm a worrywart, bro. The world is a fucking doom cell. The world is a vampire. Da-na-na-na-na-na. Meant to drain. Secret destroyer. Never mind. Getting off track, back on track now.
That
Go.
multi-organ system damage that we see with substance abuse.
What happens if someone is mixing substances? If we're talking about nicotine,
Yes.
Adderall, alcohol.
These are these are extremely valid questions that I agree with, and I know what the answer is. It's that when you mix alcohol and when you mix tobacco, nicotine, it can like dramatically increase the likelihood that there's a problem with your health or an interaction that causes a health problem, etc. Let's hear how they articulate it.
Kratom.
The drugs you just listed off there, we have a handful of stimulants, we have a couple of depressants, and then we have these two unregulated substances, which we've alluded
There he
to
goes.
earlier. That
Unregulated.
cocktail, that mix
Everything
is-
unregulated.
Is frankly, the damage is exponential.
I
And-
have to agree with what he's saying. I know that I've heard that about the studies where if you combine alcohol with smoking cigarettes, you increase your likelihood of getting certain cancers by many multiples. It stresses the body that much more. Stress no good for body, right? Finish up the audio even though we can't see their faces.
In this case, I'd be worried about multiple organ system failure, and frankly, if the doses are high enough, even death could certainly be a possible outcome here.
We don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know. What about seizures? I'd like to hear people talk about potential seizures and stuff. That's why I take days off from this stuff. That's why I'm not going to do it every day. But there have been a couple times in the past couple months where I might have gone 2 or 3 days in a row. And then I'm like, oh, I can't even feel it after 3 days in a row. So I'm like, drop out for a day. And then when you come back, I think it eliminates it quickly in your body and you're enjoying yourself again. And I enjoy the company over there. Again, it's a social environment where people are not drinking alcohol, and you don't have to have alcohol to have this social environment. And there are a lot less incidences of people getting in fights and becoming angry, which happens very frequently with alcohol usage. So this is food for thought. This is a segment I wanted to do. It was important to me. So I'm talking openly about kava. This is a culture that is taking off, and I hope that it sticks around because I do think it's a viable alternative to going and drinking alcohol. If you're going to allow alcohol, you might as well allow people to drink Kratum and Kava. I do hope those things stay put in the places where I'm enjoying them.